With your host, Andrew Donaldson. This is Heard Tell.
Welcome back to Heard Tell. We love talking to our friend Luis Mendez. He is at the Mendez Movie Report. He does great stuff. Y'all like him. I've seen the numbers. You move numbers, my friend. People love talking about movies. It's a good break from the culture and politics. How are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. I got to tell you, you would think the midterms weren't over with how many FYC stuff the studios are sending to my email and my inbox. It's nuts. I got a screener almost every night to go to.
Yeah, you're down in Florida too, so I think you better just buckle in, buddy. It's going to be a crossing of the streams down there for some time to come, with the potential of your governor maybe looking to move up in rank a little bit. I want to touch on something that we talked about the last time I had you on, and I got to thinking about it, and you mentioned a specific movie about it, and then I watched that movie, and then I really got to thinking about it. But you mentioned it. Romantic comedies. This used to be a staple of big box office releases from, let's narrow this down a little bit. Let's go late 80s. The kind of, Harry Met Sally, Pretty Woman, that kind of era up through the modern era. That was a staple of, and now we're going through a cycle of, oh, well, the rom-com's dead, but it's not really dead. It's just morphed to streaming. I find the romantic comedy, what's going on with it in movies right now, really fascinating and kind of indicative of what's going on with theaters versus streaming and all that too.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious that the romantic comedy has kind of become something that a lot of folks seem to be more interested in watching at home. I don't think it's necessarily seen as much of an event as it may have been in the past. I remember back growing up in the 90s, they have romantic comedies with some huge stars. And it was a big deal when those movies were coming out. So they would even be part of the summer lineup. But these days, it's become very much something that is on streaming. Even with a movie like Marry Me, the Jennifer Lopez, Owen Wilson movie that came out much earlier this year, they went ahead and had it available on streaming as well. At the same time, Universal went ahead and did that. The only romantic comedy that I feel has been able to overcome that, there have been two. There's The Lost City, though you can argue that's more of an adventure film. And then there's Ticket to Paradise, which last time I was on your show, I said that I was worried about that movie's box office, but it's actually done much better than I and a lot of other people thought it would do. And I think it's because it's probably sort of the last gasp of two really big movie stars being able to sell a movie in a day and age where movie star name doesn't necessarily sell movies like they used to.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Ticket to Paradise. That's exactly the movie I was thinking of. I actually watched it. I watched it on streaming at home. Let's be honest, at this stage of their career, Julia Roberts and George Clooney, they played Julia Roberts and George Clooney in every movie they're in. That's the status. Look, that's an earned privilege. So, it is what it is, but that's an earned privilege, but that's what they play. I thought it was a good movie. Look, it wasn't earth-shattering. It was formulaic, but it was well made. There wasn't anything offensive in it. You didn't feel like, God, movies have gotten so bad on some, like, if I just don't feel like I wasted my time, that's almost a win now, watching a full movie, right? It was good. I enjoyed it. Family enjoyed it. It was a good movie. The younger stars really held their own on it. I thought it was a right down the middle, solid double romantic comedy. But the way you phrased it, it's really interesting. Let me pitch it to you this way. We have the long-running joke and meme of Netflix and chill. Comedy comes from a place, when something catches on like that, it comes from a place of truth. There's something to Netflix and chill. That's a culture shift. And I think something like the romantic comedy, it's just so tailor-made for streaming. It really is. So it's not that it's dead. It just found a lot better market. And when you talk about everything being niche marketing now, hey, cuddle up on the couch with your significant other for romantic comedy, like that I think it just kind of more went home than anything else. Is that a fair way to put it?
Oh, that's extremely fair. If anybody sits down and looks at the slate of Netflix, just Netflix, and there's a lot of other streaming services that have their own romantic comedies, but if you get on Netflix and you look at almost every single week there's a new romance coming out. Most of them romantic comedies. We're in Christmas movie season now, and Netflix is coming out with romantic comedy Christmas movies. They just came out with one with Lindsay Lohan. Um, so I think that's extremely fair. I think that's exactly where the market went for the romantic comedy. Uh, you know, movies like Ticket to Paradise are able to do so well at the box office as romantic comedies. Um, I think it's become much more of a rarity. I think if you do see romantic comedies make real big money at the box office next time, they're probably going to have to, for the lack of a better word, there's going to have to be a little bit of a gimmick to them to get people to really show up at the box office and feel like they have to come to the theater to see this. Because otherwise, they're just going to, uh, they're so, they're just used to seeing it at home.
Yeah, and let's talk about the business part of this for a second. Luis Mendez joining us. He's our movie expert, certified critic now. He's legit. Something really interesting happened a couple of years ago. And again, this is something that's joked about on social media, but there's a real business and culture shift underneath it. One thing with romantic comedies is, and we joke about it, Hallmark has absolutely printed money making very inexpensive to make, very formulaic. And then they figured out like, oh, we can do holiday themes. We can make 30 Christmas movies every Christmas. And then we can make a Thanksgiving one. Then we can make, I don't know if they do an Easter one or whatever, but you just make these holiday movies that are just built for rom-coms. You can go back in time. Christmas for Connecticut. How many times have they remade that over the years? You know, that works. It works every time you try it. They've just figured out a new way to do it. You wouldn't think of Netflix and Amazon as chasing Hallmark Channel, but that's exactly what happened, because now all of a sudden Netflix is pumping out all these rom-coms and Christmas. They looked at that and went, that money train ain't gone too far. We can't jump on it yet. That's a very interesting development, because you don't think of Hallmark leading the train on that, but they really did in a way.
Oh yeah, I actually follow a movie critic that has like their own podcast where they follow all the Hallmark movies. So it's always interesting to see what kind of movies they're reviewing, because I don't get to keep up with Hallmark. I got too many movies to watch as is. But yeah, I mean, and it's funny because I remember for a while there, I actually referred to it in my reviews as, oh, Netflix is doing sort of these, this feels sort of like a Hallmark movie. And it got to the point now where it's like, well, Netflix is coming out with these so much that they've kind of become their own thing. Netflix romance, Netflix Christmas movies. And they've even made kind of franchises off of it. When you see some of these Christmas movies that have like 2-3 sequels. So, I mean, and I think the money is there because it's just easier to get to the market at home. It's like, okay, we're not asking you to go to the inconvenience of going to the theater or anything. It's like, just stay at home, watch this feel-good stuff. And you know what? In some aspects, you can even binge these movies. So I think it's just about nailing the marketplace. And I do think that Hallmark probably got ahead on all these guys about this. And the streaming services just realized that, well, this is a real opportunity for us.
One of the reasons I always enjoy talking movies with you is because you understand the business side of it. Talk to that, though, because we've seen a couple of them this year, big budget movies that fail. You're talking about people getting fired. You're talking about studio. There's been like one bad movie can shut down a whole studio. Like that, especially now where the environment is so good. The reason those movies make money, even though they're not the big box office gaudy numbers, is they know exactly how much it's going to cost to produce them. They know exactly how much the time frame to put them out. Talk about the business into that of going, this has a 6-week shoot schedule or whatever it is. It's going to have a 90-day production run, and then we're going to put it out. It's going to make X money because it costs us X money. Like this, they've got this down to a science. And any business, when you can replicate success like that, that's how you make money. That's the business side of this people don't talk about.
Well, it is funny because if you think about it, cheaper movies are kind of, as long as it's the genres that people are eating up, like romantic comedies or Christmas movies, or even something dramatically different like the horror films that come out. If you have a cheap budget, if you can get the movie done quickly, and it doesn't really take all that much to get the profit off of it. If you look at what small movies are struggling to get profits, those tend to be like more art house dramas. Um, and that's understandable because dramas can be a bit of a hard sell, especially in this day and age when a lot of folks have gotten more comfortable with picking and choosing their adult dramas. But uh, if you could get that sort of magic recipe where you know how much it's going to cost, you know you can shoot it quickly, and you don't really got to get like Avengers numbers to get people to show up and make profit off of it. I mean, it's understandable why they would make these. I mean, and again, you see it not just with the Christmas movies, but with horror movies, because horror movies are not expensive to make, and they easily got a crowd from all the teenagers that come see them. That's automatic right there, so that they can easily make a profit off of those movies. So it's understandable. That being said, the studios are still very, very reliant these days on those huge blockbusters because, I mean, when you look at the budgets for some of these movies, I mean, it's ridiculous. Hundreds of millions of dollars. That's before accounting hundreds of millions of dollars towards marketing, shooting for $1 billion box office. So it is kind of interesting how, in one sense, they can make such easy profit with the small movies, but they really do gotta keep the studio running with these huge, massive blockbusters.
Yeah, it's funny because almost every year when you look at the most gross or box office receipt list, every year there seems like there's a horror movie that surprises everybody. Almost every year there's one horror movie that all of a sudden made a bunch of money. Your latest review, since you're talking horror, that you did, Mendez Movie Report, it's on Substack. Make sure you subscribe. He does great work. Also writes at ordinary-times.com for us. You reviewed Bones and All. This has been a little bit of a divisive film. It sure seems like people either think it's brilliant or terrible, one or the other. And terrible might be the wrong word, but it's very jarring. Let me put it that way. Again, this is a plot-heavy movie, so you don't want to give it away too much, but this has got a lot of people talking, and here you go again, another horror movie, a little bit of creative to it, stays in the genre. It seems like kind of the perfect formula for those sleeper hits you're talking about. Go ahead and give people the rundown on Bones and All.
Yeah, so Bones and All is a brand new movie from the same director who actually did Call Me by Your Name, which was a big Best Picture contender a couple years back. It's interesting. It's based on a novel. It's basically a cannibal love story. So it's a mixing of horror and romance. Um, it's a movie that I would tell folks that if you have a weak stomach, you want to stay away from this movie. I'm very happy that my wife did not come with me to my screening because she does not like gore. And this movie has plenty of gore. And yet it also somehow has these quiet character moments at the same time. I personally thought the movie was okay. I didn't love it as much as other folks. I know some movie critics who are saying it might be their favorite movie of the year. Um, for me, though, it's a movie that I got a little too grim for me at times. But it is. But I do wonder if it could be a big hit. I believe it should hit wide during Thanksgiving week. But it is definitely a marriage, no pun intended, between horror and romance. But it is a very gory movie. If anybody out there is interested in checking it out, just to let you know, this is a cannibal love story, and they do not hold back on the fact that these are cannibals.
What a fun concept. And not the political ones that we've been dealing with for the last 2 weeks since the midterms either. Luis Mendez, our good movie buddy, joining us. As we're recording this, we got to mention it since we're talking movies. Martin Scorsese's 80th birthday is today as we record this. This will be out the next day, obviously. Whatever you think of all his movies, whatever pantheon of directors, he's up there somewhere on everybody's list. That's a serious list. Give me a thumbnail on Scorsese at 80. He's obviously not done. He's still working. I think he's got 3 projects going right now. What's his legacy? Because, you know, you got the mobster movie stuff. I actually love the fact that just every 8-9 years he does a documentary just for the hell of it. I always kind of admired that about his career, going all the way back. What do you take away from somebody like that we still have working? He kind of got caught up in the streaming versus, you know, since we're talking about the streaming versus theater thing, and then he kind of gave into it because somebody wrote him a check that was nice enough that he's like, okay, I can get over my scruples on this. But Martin Scorsese, just some thoughts on the great man's birthday.
Yeah, okay. So Scorsese is without a shadow of doubt extremely important in modern cinema, especially for film buffs like me who want to check out the very old 1910s silent films, because he has been very, very important in making sure that those movies are restored, found, protected. I don't know how many people out there understand how much work he's put into that kind of restoration. And the reason that I can go back and visit these extremely early days of movies is thanks to Scorsese. And as a director, he has an incredible legacy because he's had so many movies that have become not just movies that are going to show up in the 1001 movies to watch before you die books and stuff like that, but movies that are mainstream classic hits. You know, personally, I would say probably my favorite of his old movies, and this might be a little bit of a boring pick, but it's Goodfellas. I really, really adore that movie. He's also done some family stuff. He did Hugo a couple years ago. He really is important, and he's still working. I mean, he's got a movie called Killers of the Flower Moon that I know is going to be an Oscar contender. We thought we were going to get it this year, but it looks like we're going to be getting it next year instead. He is very pivotal. Now, I do limit my praise for the man. There are a lot of people in the film world who absolutely praise him and see him as a god. Guillermo del Toro, a couple weeks ago, made a comment that he would give up years of his life to give more years to Scorsese and stuff like that. He is a saint to a lot of folks. But I do have some issues with him regarding some of his comments of late, where it sort of feels like he's kind of fighting a lot of change, particularly what I think is, quite frankly, kind of snobbish comments about some genre films of late. But you cannot overstate how important he's been to cinema, not just through his work, not through the stuff he's just coming out, but also the fact that he is a big reason why we can go back and watch a lot of movies from the 1910s and 1920s that would have otherwise maybe been lost.
Yeah, one of these days we should do a long form pod on the various fires, like the 37 Fox fire and of course the 2008 Universal fire, like how much stuff has been lost that we will never have again, that people don't even realize we lost from things like fire and degradation and things like that.
I mean, I think a lot of folks don't realize that the first ever movie to win Best Picture, Wings, we thought we lost it for a while. And then thankfully, I think it was in the 70s, a copy was found in a Paris museum, like in one of their archives. I mean, and those kind of miraculous discoveries are still happening to this day. So if anybody out there, if you got some old movies, reels and stuff, check your archives and stuff, because you never know if it's a lost movie. The lost movie that I personally would love for us to find is London at Midnight, which is a Lon Chaney film. We've got sort of a rundown of what happens in the movie, but we don't got the movie itself. That's like the golden. That's really like the golden goose that we need for the lost films.
Yeah, and I'm not the cinephile that you are, but my favorite early one, Metropolis, which has a lot of iconic imagery that's been stolen. They don't even know how much of it we actually have. That's how much of it's lost. They think we might have like 30 or 40% of it. They found a bunch of it about 10 years ago and restored some of it. But there's large chunks of that movie we don't have it. Go just watch the clips of it. The visuals on that, when you consider when it was made, is just amazing.
Well, yeah, people should watch that movie because it's actually my second favorite from that year. It is a really darn good movie, and it's just Fritz Lang is probably my favorite silent film director. He just absolutely amazing, the stuff that he did back then. I would really wonder how he probably would have gone crazy in this day and age with visual effects and the way that Lang would just go big. He probably would have gone nuts if he were around today.
Some of them people didn't need CGI. It would have been bad for everybody involved. Luis Mendez. All right, buddy, real quick, before we let you go, we're getting down to the end of the year. Usually this is, people unleash a couple blockbusters right around Thanksgiving and Christmas. This year feels a little slower than maybe normal, but give people a couple things over the holidays. People like to take in movies with their families. Give folks a couple things to look for as we round out the year of our Lord 2022.
Well, Black Panther Wakanda Forever's out there. It's been huge. If folks haven't checked it out, I thought it was a pretty decent movie. I didn't really like it as much as the first movie, but it's got a very beautiful tribute to Chadwick Boseman in there, which it's really impressive the way they were able to bounce back after taking that huge loss. We do have the Avatar sequel coming out. No, Avatar's a little bit divisive for some folks. There's a lot of debate around it. I'm keeping an eye on it because it may be as big of an awards player as the last movie, but it's honestly a very big mystery as to what that's going to do, how audiences are going to react to it. We also got The Fablemans, which should be out by Thanksgiving time. I should hopefully be seeing it on Monday as of this recording. It is the newest Steven Spielberg movie. It may be the front runner to win Best Picture. And a movie that will be coming out should be wide by about Christmas week. And if you really liked Wolf of Wall Street, you may want to give this movie a try. Babylon. It is the next Damien Chazelle movie. It is probably going to be a big contender at the Oscars. And it is a movie that is basically based on the 1920s and that transition from silent to talkies, but with this audacious sort of sex and drugs sort of dark comedic look to it. So if you were into Wolf of Wall Street, I think folks might want to check that out. I can't wait to check out the movie myself because it sounds like a lot of stuff that's right up my alley.
Hey, Downton Abbey's last movie already covered transitioning to talkies. I guess we just needed to sex it up a little bit more. I'm sorry, I love Downton Abbey. I apologize for nothing.
Hey, we got Singing in the Rain too. Singing in the Rain classic that covers that time period also.
We joke about it before, but Hollywood loves movies about Hollywood.
Yes.
Like, it's just a fact. So
Luis Mendez. We got plenty of them. Fablemans, Empire Light, Babylon. We got plenty of them.
If you want an Oscar, make a movie about making a movie or a musical about making a movie, and you will win an Oscar. That's the trick to it. Luis Mendez, our movie guy, we're going to have you on more and more because one is it's fun to talk about something other than politics. Two is you're really, really good at it. So let folks know where they can keep up with you, your writings, your other things going on, my friend, until we get you back on Hertel again.
Well, just basically check out my Substack, Mendez Movie Report.substack.com. You do not have to pay anything like some of these other Substacks. They're 100% free. And if you want to find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or if you got a letterbox, Mendez Movie RPT. That's where I'm available. If you want to check out any of my thoughts on any movies, that's basically where you can find me.
Yeah, you do great work, sir. We'll talk Godzilla next time I see you wearing your Godzilla shirt, trying to bait me into talking about because there's been some big news in Godzilla world the last few weeks.
Next year we are going to get very next year we're going to be very spoiled as Godzilla fanboys. We're going to get 2 Godzilla movies next year.
Yeah, that news just came out, so I knew you were going to bait me into trying to talk to it, but no, that will not work. We will do it next time. Luis Mendez, you're the best, buddy. Thank you, sir.
No problem. Thanks.
Yes, sir.